All right, we're here with Coach Scott Green,
Hey, guys.
Wyoming Seminary.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Glad you're here. Great day to be in Northeast Pennsylvania.
No doubt about it. It's beautiful
Yep.
up here. One thing I want to do before we get into what a wrestling fan like myself already knows about
Okay.
Wyoming Seminary
Yeah.
and about Scott Green and the success that you have before we dive into that. For the casual fan,
Yep.
we're not in Wyoming,
We are not.
and this is not a seminary.
Neither of those. You're correct. So this is a constant kind of conversation on our campus. Seminary is simply a name for a school in the mid 1800s in this region. So we've been in business since 1844 and was originally called Wyoming Seminary. So we're not training priests here or anything like that. We're just basically an independent school that's been around for 175 years. The Wyoming part of it is interested, and I didn't know this until I came here, but this is the original Wyoming, and settlers in the state of Wyoming were people from this valley, from this valley, and they went out there and kept the name with them. So this is the Wyoming Valley of Pennsylvania, all the way up into New York, and we kept that name for those number of years too. So that's where Wyoming Seminary, the name comes from.
So it is a college prep school, though.
It is. Yep.
With dormitories and the like.
Sure. Yep.
How many of the students, how many of the wrestlers, what's the percentage of kids that actually live on campus here?
So last year I could have given you, we had 37 kids on our roster last year, and the breakdown was 24 boarders and 13 day students. This year I haven't looked at those yet. It's probably a little bit more tilted towards boarding, but we've been fortunate enough to have a good club. I got here about 9-10 years ago, and we started Excalibur Club, and some of those kids that really were invested in that are starting to come up through, and they're into our middle schoolers now. So we're lucky to have added to the day population of our student body and of our wrestling team too. When I first got here, it was 100% boarders.
So being more of a private type school, how do you get your wrestlers? Is it a recruiting process?
Sure.
How do you go about saying, hey, I want this guy, or better yet, you want to come here?
I think that's the key, is the last sentence that you said there. This isn't a good fit for everybody, and we are constantly taking phone calls from parents. People find out about us, people that are attracted to the wrestling end of it, and then they get on campus and they learn a little bit more about the school, and they realize this might be worth it, and it might be work for me. And then some might say, hey, that's not what I'm looking for. It's a pretty rigorous academic program here. If you're going to board, you're going to live away from your family. So it takes a special kind of young man, young woman to be a Wyoming Seminary wrestler, and we're always mindful of that. We get kids from all over the country that apply. We'll have some that will come and visit campus. Parents of our current students will reach out to some of their friends in the wrestling community and say, hey, you should check them out. And we kind of try to corral them through our application process and determine whether this is something that's a good fit. We always tell them before they decide to come here is if this is a 100% wrestling decision, it's probably not a good idea. You're going to want to buy into our entire culture. You're going to want to be challenged in the classroom, and all of those things have to be things that you're looking for, or it's probably not going to work.
Well, I told you off camera I'm impressed.
Oh, thank you.
And just to say those words is not doing it any justice. Obviously, somebody needs to come here like myself and see it roll out. And I've only spent a couple hours here.
Yeah.
When it comes down to the type of individual that you want here, it's not a cookie cutter approach, though, right?
Absolutely not. There are kids who, the wrestling is what brings them here, and then all of a sudden they are energized by everything that we have to offer on campus. And then we'll have kids that will start in our lower school, and they might start wrestling in 5th or 6th grade. And I was just talking to the group at the end, and they just want to be part of something big, part of something bigger than themselves, and the opportunities that we provide, we feel, in terms of wrestling development, but also it's more to wrestling than wrestling, right? There's a lot of other things that you can learn and glean from being a participant in the sport, and we feel like being a part of a big time program like ours amplifies all those lessons, and we're thrilled to be able to continue to do it.
Well, I heard your speech there at the end to the
thanks,
team,
yeah.
and I know it wasn't platitudes just for the camera,
Yeah.
right? You're trying to build a certain individual that comes out of here, and you're talking about them about more than just wrestling.
Yeah.
You talk about the names on the wall.
Yep.
You talk about the people that have maybe not even been successful when it comes to national prep championships or Ironman championships or things like that. You're trying to build a certain type of individual come out here. What are you doing along the process to get them to buy in and see that? Because you could throw up your hand and say, well, kids these days, just like a lot of coaches do.
I hate that. Kids these days they don't know my kids. Anyone who says that, and they're not really looking that hard. Kids are the same as they were when you and I were kids, and they're going to do what you tell them to do, and they're going to do what you expect them to do. And if your expectations are low, they're going to meet them. And if your expectations are high, they're going to meet them. And there's going to be stumbles along the way, but and that kind of infuriates me when people say, oh, kids these days and video games and all that stuff. Like, bull. Not believing it, not buying in. You put a kid in the right situation and you teach them to value themselves and to value the opportunities they have, they're going to respond. They'll meet the expectations that you put out for them. It's not always going to be easy, but as long as you're continuing to do that, they're gonna live in. And I think we get kids to buy in by constantly reminding them of what we represent, what our values are, and what our culture is all about. We work with teenagers, so there's going to be mistakes made along the way, but we're going to stand by them. And part of a boarding school culture is building a community, building a family, and they feel that with the team, especially, but they feel that with our entire 480 student body, and all the faculty that live here too. So we have some tremendous advantages of being a small, close-knit community, and like I said, wrestling is just a small part of that. They're getting that day in, day out in the classroom, in the dormitories, all those things that are important to us.
And you certainly embody that because you're more than just a wrestling coach.
I do. I am. So I teach English here, and I work in the admissions office. And if you're a boarding school teacher, boarding school faculty, you are a jack of all trades. So you're figuring out how to help raise these kids, and that's incredibly important to be able to tell a parent who's going to send their kid half the country away, or in the case of some of our students, are from China, Japan, Kazakhstan, all over the world. So if you're not looking to be a part of a kid's life in an extremely intense way, this probably isn't a job for you. And people who make it here buy into that too.
All right, so let's talk about wrestling.
We do that too, yeah.
What are your goals? What do you want to do this year?
Well, I think our main goal, our number one thing that we want to do every year is teach kids to win the college admissions game, right? The number one thing that we want them coming here is to realize that wrestling is a vehicle that can propel you to open a door that may not be available to you otherwise. So everything that we do is kind of geared towards that. So results are important. We don't minimize that, and we want to win every tournament that we enter, and we want 14 prep national champions, and we want to hang banners and get rings and do all that stuff. But if we're not using that to put forth our values and to use it as a vehicle to make us better in all aspects of our life, then those results don't really mean anything, right? So I think that's one thing that we stress with the kids. We're happy, and we put the reminders up all the time of our program goals. And number one on that list, win the college admissions game. Figure out a way to take this thing that you're good at and help it propel you forward in life by opening doors that you wouldn't have otherwise. But we want our kids wrestling when they're 27, 28 years old. We want to see them to see a plan to go and win some international medals. We want them to travel overseas. And then if we're doing all that right, and we're having these kids value what we value and buy in, those results are going to come, right? We're going to do very well at the Ironman. We've had a good, fortunate run at Prep Nationals where we finished second place, first place every year that I've been here. We have a tremendous rivalry in the dual meet aspect with Blair Academy, who's the number one team in the consensus, maybe number one athletic program in the country. So we're able to compete with them, and we enjoy that, and we're able to go to any tournament in the country and do very well. So I think all those other things drive those results.
It's interesting, Coach, that I asked you about wrestling and you went right back to those core values. What I hear you say, just boil it down, is if you take care of that stuff, the wrestling will take care of itself. Yep,
absolutely true. I think that we talk a lot about technique. I don't want to minimize that, and I don't want everyone to say we're doing no technique or anything like that. We certainly do have practices you watched today. We talked about technique, but all the technique in the world, all the weightlifting in the world, all that stuff, it's all part of the puzzle, and the puzzle has to be complete for you to be your best. So lifestyle versus lifestyle, right? Nutrition matters, academics matter, all those things, and if you're working on every piece of the puzzle, eventually it comes together, and the results will be what you want them to be.
You mentioned lifestyle versus lifestyle. Let's talk a little bit more about that, because I heard you say that today.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not a brand new concept, but you're telling these kids that. What does that mean?
It means that you're going to wrestle guys who have seen the same level of coaching that you have, that they've seen the same technique, that have been to the same clinics and competitions that you have. And the things that are going to separate you are so finite and so small that you have to be mindful of all of them. So, there's no new move that you're going to show that's going to get you over the hump. We're going to tweak stuff and we're going to do all that to prepare you, but it's the little things that are going to make the difference. It's going to be the nutrition. It's going to be the sleep and buying into not being the guy that stays up on your cell phone until 1 in the morning when you got a 6 a.m. practice. All those different things are part of the lifestyle that you need to live to be successful. So if you're just kind of trying to put the puzzle together with the best technique in the world, that's going to get you pretty far, but it's not going to get you to the point where you really want to be.
A couple of those interviews I did earlier with your team mentioned lifestyle versus lifestyle. Good. So, Coach, it's sinking in. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of things that you're doing that I haven't witnessed are sinking into. You're making all around gentlemen.
Well, our kids are our product, right? So we have to view it that way. And like kids who mess up and it doesn't work out, or they're really struggling, they're as important to us as the kids who are the shining examples of how great things are. You can't kind of be like, I'm big on not blaming it on the kids. Like in the classroom, if all my kids are failing a quiz, I probably didn't teach it well enough. And if I've got kids that are engaging in things in my wrestling team, that's got to be a little bit on me too. It's got to be a partnership in figuring out how it goes right back to you be saying, like, kids these days. I don't buy into that. So we got to teach them everything, and we got to tell them what our expectations are in every area. And we got to share the responsibility of them getting towards their goals. It's not all on them.
Okay. One thing I wanted to mention was the female program, the girls.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Only girls program in the state?
Well, right now, I would say they're working hard on getting it sanctioned in the PIAA. We're kind of unique in that, again, the boarding school feel, and our girls compete only in freestyle.
Couple of stud coaches as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We got some. Our kids get to rub elbows with 5-time world champion on a regular basis, boys and girls. Adeline taught practice on Monday, and it was tremendous to see our kids just kind of sat there and buying in and valuing that that this is something that we're all in together, male, female. High school, college, whatever. We want our kids to see people like that and strive to be like them. And we're fortunate to have Aaron and Cece and Adeline with that program in its third year, really kind of taking off, traveling overseas. And I'm envious. I get to go to the Akron, Ohio's of the world, and they're headed over to Estonia. They just got back from St. Petersburg. Every once in a while, those throw into Las Vegas for us, but mostly we're hitting those hardcore, beer and wings, Northeast United States country that I love. But I'd love to have a tournament in St. Petersburg some year, or something like that. So I'm really envious of the opportunities that they have, but it drives us to keep the boys focused on that stuff too. Yeah.
Well, being a huge wrestling fan myself, I'm super excited about the progress that the women's programs have made. And it's really trickling down. Ohio now is talking about it. Pennsylvania is talking about it. You're leading the way and doing that. And it's great. It's fantastic. Nick's sister is a wrestler.
Well, watch out for Jacqueline Buzakis. Remember that name. If it's the first time you're hearing it, is this interview, you're going to flash back on this in 10 years and be like, wow, I remember someone talking about her. But, like I said at the beginning of the girls' process, is that we have a tremendous platform here at Wyoming Seminary. And we don't just have the ability to lead, we have a responsibility to lead, right? So if we're not doing something about equity in wrestling, and if we're not pushing girls program, why would anyone else, right? Like, we have resources, we have all those things that have allowed us to get to this level with the boys' side. We have a responsibility to lead and bring girls wrestling to high school level. Just have to do it. It's not something that we can do or should do. It's something that we need to do, and we're proud to do it, and it's worked out great.
Well, I'm glad that you can be an example for other people to come along and say, hey, if they can do it, we'll figure out how to do it as well, because it really is, I believe, the future of the sport.
100%. Yep.
All right, so long interview here. I want to close things out, but I want to switch gears on you a little bit. What's going on with your Twitter?
I got a strong Twitter game. No doubt about it. It's a nice place to. My Twitter is pretty much completely wrestling based, and I love interaction with coaches from all over. It creeps my wife out if we're at a tournament or the convention down in Florida or something like that, and someone comes up, they're like, "Oh, I follow you on Twitter." She's like, "Okay, let's walk the other way," you know. But I just think it's a tremendous platform again to discuss wrestling. I've got a little bit of a sarcastic sense of humor, so I can get into some fun conversations with people that might misread that, but it's all good, you know. And I think it's a great way to share stuff out there about our program and to learn from other coaches as well that I interact with there, and I love it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So if people don't follow you and they follow you from this interview, they should.
At Sem Wrestling. Yeah,
there you
get
go.
on the train. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
Thank you for coming out. Beautiful Northeast Pennsylvania. You got a great day for it. It's 60 degrees here. It could have been worse, but we're looking forward to getting out to Ohio. We're looking forward to seeing these and continuing to spread the word and the fellowship that our sport provides.
Thank you, Coach.
All right. Thank you.